When heiress Genevieve Lang hires a janitor to scandalize New York's elite, she expects headlines, not heartbreak, healing, and the truth about herself. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Genevieve Lang's Manhattan penthouse. She sat at her marble kitchen island, staring at the tabloid on her screen. The headline made her stomach turn. Lang Heiress dumped again. What's wrong with Genevieve? Delete, she muttered, swiping the article away. But she knew it wouldn't matter. By now, everyone in her social circle had seen it. Genevieve Lang was beautiful, tall and slender, with honey blonde hair that fell in perfect waves past her shoulders. At 25, she was the sole heir to the Lang fortune, built on her father's global tech empire. She had everything money could buy, but lately, all she felt was hollow. The doorbell rang and her assistant Mia entered, without waiting for a response. "You're still in your robe," Mia said, placing a coffee on the counter. "The foundation meeting starts in an hour." "Cancel it," Genevieve said, not looking up from her phone. "Your father specifically asked for you to be there. It's about the annual banquet next week." Genevieve groaned. The Lang Foundation's Billionaire Banquet was the social event of the season, a gathering of New York's wealthiest families, all pretending to care about charity while sizing up each other's net worth. "Fine," she said finally, "but I'm not staying long." 2 hours later, Genevieve sat in her father's gleaming corporate headquarters, barely listening as the foundation board discussed seating arrangements and donation pledges. Richard Lang, a stern man in his 60s with silver hair and cold blue eyes, kept glancing at his daughter with disapproval. "Genevieve," he said suddenly, "your table will include the Hayworths and the Prestons. Their sons are both single now." She felt her cheeks burn. "Dad, I'm not interested in being set up." "After that disaster with Thomas Ashford, you need to rehabilitate your image," he said, his voice low but firm. "The tabloids are having a field day. It reflects poorly on our family." "My broken engagement is not for public consumption," she snapped. "It is when you throw champagne in his face at Le Bernardin and storm out," her father replied. "Everything we do is public, Genevieve. The sooner you accept that, the better." The meeting continued, but Genevieve was no longer listening. Her phone buzzed with a text from her former friend Olivia. "Heard you are going stag to the banquet again. Need a shoulder to cry on?" Genevieve's blood boiled. Olivia had been one of the first to abandon her when Thomas broke off their engagement, quickly aligning herself with his side of the story. "I need some air," she announced, standing abruptly. She ignored her father's stern look and walked out. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, fighting back tears. She was so tired of being the punchline, the poor little rich girl who couldn't keep a man. The whispers, the fake sympathy, the thinly veiled satisfaction from those who had always envied her position. As she stood there, a maintenance cart rolled by. The man pushing it kept his eyes down, moving quietly as if trying not to disturb the important meeting happening nearby. Something about his careful movements, his deliberate invisibility, struck Genevieve. Here was someone her social circle would never even notice, someone who could walk through her world without belonging to it. A dangerous idea began to form. "Excuse me," she called out. The man stopped and turned. He was taller than she'd realized, with broad shoulders under his grey uniform. His face was striking, not conventionally handsome, but there was something magnetic about his dark eyes and the set of his jaw. "Yes, ma'am?" he asked, his voice unexpectedly deep and clear. "What's your name?" she asked. "Elijah Rowe." "Do you own a suit, Elijah Rowe?" He frowned slightly. "Why do you ask?" Genevieve stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I have a PR opposition for you. A night's work, very simple. I'll pay you $5,000. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "What kind of work?" "Be my date to a banquet, next Saturday night. Wear a suit, smile for photos, that's it." Now he looked genuinely confused. "Your date? Why would you—" "Does it matter?" She cut him off. "It's $5,000 for one night. Most people would jump at that." Elijah studied her face, and Genevieve had the uncomfortable feeling he was seeing right through her perfect makeup to the desperation beneath. "This is about making someone jealous?" he asked. No, she said with a bitter laugh. It's about making a point. He was quiet for a moment, considering. Then, 10,000. Genevieve blinked in surprise. Excuse me? If I'm going to be used as some kind of statement, the price is $10,000, he said calmly. She should have been offended. Instead, she found herself fighting back a smile. Fine, $10,000. Give me your number and I'll text you the details. After they exchanged information, Elijah looked at her one more time. Just to be clear, Ms. Lang, I'm not saying yes because I find this amusing. I'm saying yes because I have something to say. Before she could ask what he meant, he continued down the hall with his cart, leaving her both puzzled and strangely intrigued. The night of the banquet arrived, and Genevieve stood in her bedroom, surrounded by discarded dresses. She finally settled on a deep emerald gown that set off her eyes and skimmed her figure in a way that was both elegant and daring. Are you sure about this? Mia asked, zipping up the dress. Your father will be furious. That's the point, Genevieve replied, fastening diamond earrings that had once belonged to her mother. Everyone thinks they can control my life, who I date, who I marry, how I be. Have let them choke on this. Mia looked concerned. Jen, I know you're hurting, but I'm not hurting, Genevieve snapped. I'm angry. There's a difference. The doorman called up to announce that her guest had arrived. Genevieve took one last look in the mirror, straightened her shoulders and headed for the elevator. When the doors opened to the lobby, she stopped short. Elijah was waiting by the fountain, and he was transformed. His dark hair was neatly styled, and he wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that highlighted his athletic build. He stood with a natural confidence, his hands clasped behind his back, gazing thoughtfully at the water. For a moment, Genevieve faltered. This was not the awkward prop she had imagined. This man looked like he belonged in her world, or perhaps in a better one. He turned, sensing her presence, and their eyes met. His widened slightly at the sight of her, and a flicker of genuine appreciation crossed his face before his expression became neutral again. Ms. Lang, he said with a slight nod. You look beautiful. Thank you, she replied, suddenly feeling off balance. You clean up well yourself. Shall we? He asked, offering his arm with surprising grace. In the car, they sat in silence until Genevieve felt compelled to fill it. Just so we're clear on the plan, I'm your date for the evening, he interrupted smoothly. I'll be charming but not overly familiar. I assume you haven't told anyone about our arrangement. Of course not, she said. And what's my background story? I doubt you want to introduce me as the man who mops your father's floors. There was no bitterness in his tone, just a straightforward question. But Genevieve felt a flicker of shame nonetheless. We met at... She hesitated. A poetry reading. One of his eyebrows rose slightly. A poetry reading? Do you actually attend those? No, she admitted, but no one will question it too deeply. They'll be too busy whispering about why I brought someone so obviously outside our circle. Elijah looked out the window at the passing city lights. And that's the point, isn't it? To scandalize them all with your inappropriate date. Genevieve didn't answer, which was answer enough. Well, he said after a moment, I hope I don't disappoint. The Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom was a vision of crystal chandeliers and white orchids. Waiters circulated with champagne, while New York's elite greeted each other with air kisses and practiced smiles. When Genevieve entered with Elijah on her arm, the reaction was immediate. Conversations paused, heads turned, and eyebrows raised. She felt a surge of satisfaction at their shocked expressions. They're staring, Elijah murmured. Good, she replied. Her father, Spotty, eyed them from across the room, his face darkening as he excused himself from his conversation and made his way over. Genevieve, Richard Lang said tightly, I don't believe I know your guest. Dad, this is Elijah Rowe, she said with a bright smile. Elijah, my father, Richard Lang. Elijah extended his hand. A pleasure to meet you, sir. Richard shook it briefly, his eyes cold. And how did you two meet? At a poetry reading, Genevieve said before Elijah could speak. Elijah is a poet. Her father's expression made it clear what he thought of poets. How interesting. I don't recall seeing your name on the guest list, Mr. Rowe. Last-minute addition, Genevieve said breezily. I'm sure it won't be a problem considering how much our family donates to the foundation. Richard's jaw tightened, but he was too conscious of appearances to make a scene. Of course not. If you'll excuse me, I need to greet the Vandermeers. As he walked away, Genevieve felt Elijah's eyes on her. What? She asked. Nothing, he said. Just wondering if the entire evening will be this hostile. Probably, she admitted. Sorry if that makes you uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable, he replied. I grew up with people looking at me like I didn't belong. I'm used to it. Before she could respond, Olivia appeared with Thomas, Genevieve's ex-fiancé, by her side. The betrayal was still fresh enough to make Genevieve's chest tighten. Jen, darling, Olivia trilled, her eyes gleaming with malicious curiosity as she took in Elijah. Who's your new friend? Elijah Rowe, he answered for himself, his voice steady and confident. And you are? Olivia Chambers, she said, clearly thrown by his self-possession. And this is Thomas Ashford. Thomas, handsome in the bland way of privileged men, gave a curt nod. Genevieve, unexpected to see you here after everything. Why would I miss it? Genevieve replied with a brittle smile. The foundation means so much to me. And where did you find your date? Olivia asked, not bothering to hide her condescension. I don't believe we've seen you at any of the usual events, Elijah. I move in different circles, he said simply. Clearly, Thomas muttered. Genevieve felt a flash of anger, but before she could respond, Elijah placed his hand gently on the small of her back. Shall we find our table? He suggested. I believe dinner is about to be served. As they walked away, Genevieve was surprised by her gratitude for his calm intervention. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not letting me make a scene. He gave her a sidelong glance. Isn't that exactly why you brought me? To make a scene? She didn't have an answer for that. Dinner was a tense affair. They were seated at a table with the Hayworths and the Prestons, just as her father had planned. The two sons, Mark Hayworth and James Preston, took turns trying to impress Genevieve, while pointedly excluding Elijah from the conversation. Elijah, for his part, seemed entirely untroubled. He ate his meal with quiet dignity, occasionally catching Genevieve's eye with a look that somehow managed to be both sympathetic and amused. After dessert, Richard Lang took the stage to make his annual speech about the Foundation's charitable work. Genevieve had heard it all before, the carefully scripted humility, the strategic pauses for applause. And now, her father concluded, as is our tradition, we open the floor to any of our esteemed donors who wish to share a few words about what the Lang Foundation means to them. This was always Genevieve's least favorite part of the evening, watching wealthy people compete to sound the most generous and compassionate. To her surprise, Elijah leaned close and whispered, I'd like to speak. What? She hissed. That's not part of the plan. You never asked what I have to say, he reminded her, then stood before she could stop him. The room fell silent as Elijah made his way to the stage. Good evening, Elijah began, his deep voice filling the room. My name is Elijah Rowe, and I'm I clean the offices where many of you work, he continued. I empty your trash, I wipe your fingerprints from glass doors, I vacuum the carpets where you walk. I'd like to share something I wrote after arcing the night shift at Lang Tower for the first time. It's called Invisible Labor. And then, in that quiet, beautiful voice, Elijah began to recite a poem about the night workers who kept the world of wealth running. The cleaners, the security guards, the maintenance staff. He spoke of dignity in labor, of dreams deferred, of being seen through rather than seen. His words were simple but powerful, delivered with such quiet intensity that the entire Rue M was spellbound. When he spoke of the loneliness he witnessed in the corner offices, the family photos facing empty chairs, the uneaten meals in takeout containers, Genevieve felt as if he was speaking directly to her soul. The final lines hung in the air. "We are the hands that build your gleaming towers, the backs that bear the weight of your success. Remember us when counting golden hours, for we are human too, no more, no less." The silence that followed was absolute. Then, from the back of the room, someone began to applaud. Others joined in, hesitantly at first, then with growing enthusiasm. Not everyone. Genevieve could see her father's thunderous expression, could see Thomas and Olivia exchanging horrified glances, but enough to make it clear that Elijah's words had landed. He returned to their table, his face calm, but his eyes alight with something fierce and proud. "That," Genevieve said when he sat down, "was not what I expected." "I told you I had something to say," he replied. For the rest of the evening, people approached their table, some curious, some genuinely moved, some barely concealing their discomfort. Elijah spoke to each of them with the same quiet dignity, neither apologizing for his presence nor trying too hard to fit in, and Genevieve, watching him, felt something shift inside her. The bitter triumph she had anticipated, seeing her family and friends scandalized by her inappropriate date, had been replaced by a different feeling altogether, one she couldn't quite name. As the night drew to a close, her father approached, his face rigid with controlled anger. Alone. She followed him to a quiet corner, bracing herself for his fury. "What were you thinking?" Richard demanded. "Bringing that janitor here and letting him turn our banquet into some kind of political statement?" "His name is Elijah," Genevieve said, "and he was invited by me." "This little rebellion of yours has gone too far," her father said. "First the scene with Thomas, now this. People are talking, Genevieve, and not in a good way." "They're always talking, Dad," she replied wearily. "At least this time it's about something that matters." Richard's expression hardened. "You will take your date and leave now. We'll discuss the consequences of this stunt tomorrow." Without waiting for her response, he turned and walked away. When Genevieve returned to Elijah, he stood immediately. "Time to go?" he asked, reading her expression. "Yes," she said. "I think we've made quite enough of an impression for one night." In the car, they sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Elijah spoke. "I'm sorry if I went off script," he said, "but I'm not sorry for what I said." "Don't apologize," Genevieve replied, staring out the window. "You were incredible. Everyone in that room will remember tonight." "Is that what you wanted?" She turned to look at him, really look at him. "I don't know what I wanted anymore. I thought I was using you to make a point, to embarrass my family and shock my friends. But you weren't what I expected, Elijah Rowe." He held her gaze, his dark eyes searching. "And what did you expect?" "Someone who would make me look rebellious without making me question everything." The car pulled up to her building, and they sat for a moment longer, something unspoken hanging between them. "I'll have the money transferred to your account tomorrow," Genevieve said finally. Elijah nodded. "Thank you for an interesting evening, Ms. Lang." "Genevieve," she corrected him. "After tonight, I think you can call me Genevieve." "Genevieve," he repeated, and somehow her name in his mouth sounded like poetry too. As she watched him walk away, Genevieve knew that something had changed tonight, not just in how others saw her, but in how she saw herself. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she was curious about what tomorrow might bring. Genevieve couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Elijah's voice reciting his poem, saw the stunned faces of New York's elite as the eye listened to the words of a man they would normally never notice. At 3 a.m., she gave up and walked to her floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering city below. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office." She tossed the phone aside without responding. Instead, she opened her laptop and searched for Elijah Rowe Poet. To her surprise, several results appeared: small literary magazines, a few local poetry slams, even a self-published collection available online. She clicked through H to a video of him performing at a cafe in Harlem, his voice just as mesmerizing as it had been at the banquet. By morning, she had fallen asleep on her couch, laptop still open beside her. Mia's arrival woke her with a start. "Rough night?" Mia asked, handing her a coffee. "You could say that," Genevieve replied, taking a grateful sip. Mia sat down across from her. "So that was some stunt last night?" "It wasn't a stunt," Genevieve said defensively. "At least, it didn't end up that way. Your father called me 3 times asking where you found Elijah. What did you tell him?" "That I had no idea, which is the truth," Mia replied pointedly. "Where did you find him, Jen? And don't tell me a poetry reading." Genevieve sighed. "He works in Dad's building as a janitor." Mia's eyes widened. "You brought the janitor to the Lang Foundation banquet as your date?" "I paid him," Genevieve admitted. $10,000 to be my date and scandalize everyone." "Well, mission accomplished," Mia said with a low whistle. "Though not quite in the way you planned, from what I hear. Everyone's talking about his poem." Genevieve stood and paced to the window. "It wasn't supposed to go like that. He wasn't supposed to be him." "And what's that supposed to mean?" "He was supposed to be awkward, out of place, someone my father and his friends could look down on," Genevieve said, the words sounding awful now that she spoke them aloud. "Instead, he was the most genuine person in that room." Mia studied her friend's face. "You like him?" "I don't even know him," Genevieve protested. "But you want to," Mia pressed. Before Genevieve could respond, her phone rang. Her father's name flashed on the screen. "I have to get ready for the Inquisition," she said, ignoring the call. "What should I wear to my own execution?" "Something dung bulletproof," Mia suggested. Richard Lang's office occupied the top floor of Lang Tower, with views that dominated the Manhattan skyline. Genevieve stepped off the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she approached her father's assistant. "He's waiting for you," the woman said, not quite meeting Genevieve's eyes. Genevieve straightened her shoulders and entered the office. Her father wasn't alone. Thomas Ashford sat in one of the Arthur chairs facing the desk, and beside him was his father, William Ashford, chairman of Ashford Industries and one of her father's oldest friends. "Genevieve," Richard said, his voice clipped. "Sit down." She took the remaining chair, crossing her legs and trying to appear calmer than she felt. "I didn't realize this was a group meeting. Last night's incident has implications beyond our family," her father replied. "Thomas and William were directly affected by your behavior." "My behavior?" Genevieve repeated. "I brought a date to a banquet. He gave a speech. I don't see how that affects anyone." William Ashford cleared his throat. "Your date used our charitable event as a platform for his political views. It was inappropriate and embarrassing." "He spoke about dignity and being seen," Genevieve countered. "If you found that embarrassing, maybe you should ask yourself why." Thomas leaned forward. "Come on, Jen. You brought the help to a black-tie gala. Everyone knows you did it to get back at me." "Not everything is about you, Thomas," she snapped. "Enough," Richard cut in. "Genevieve, what you did was reckless and damaging. The banquet is our most important fundraising event of the year. Several donors have already expressed their discomfort with last night's display." "Good," Genevieve said. "Maybe they should be uncomfortable. Maybe we all should be." Her father's face hardened. "This rebellious phase of yours ends now. You have responsibilities to this family, to our name." "I know all about our name, Dad," she said bitterly. "It's all that's ever mattered to you." The merger between Langtech and Ashford Industries is too important to be derailed by personal differences. Genevieve felt a chill run down her spine. For the good of both families. She stared at them in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "It makes sense, Jen," Thomas said with a confidence that made her skin crawl. "We had a good thing going before you overreacted about that misunderstanding with Olivia." "Misunderstanding?" Genevieve's voice rose. "I caught you in bed with her." "Genevieve," her father warned. "No," she said, standing up. "This is insane. You can't honestly expect me to marry him after what he did, just to save some business deal." "It's not just a business deal," Richard replied. "It's the future of Lang Tech. The board is already questioning my leadership after your mother's death and my heart attack last year." "So sell the company," Genevieve said, "but don't sell me." The silence that followed was deafening. "Janitor. He's already becoming a problem." "What do you mean?" William picked up a tablet and turned it toward her. Wall Street gets schooled by the janitor poet. Elijah Rowe, eat the rich. "This is going viral," William said grimly. "The last thing any of us needs is some anti-capitalist poster boy with connections to our families." "He's not anti-capitalist," Genevieve argued. "He just wants people like us to see people like him." "People like him should know their place," Thomas muttered. Genevieve turned to him, eyes blazing. "And what place is that, Thomas? Beneath you, invisible to you, cleaning up your messes while you take all the credit." "That's enough," Richard said firmly. "Genevieve, I've made my position clear. Now I need your answer. Or will you help repair the damage you've caused, or will you continue this childish rebellion?" She looked at the three men watching her expectantly, all so confident in their power to control her life. Something inside her snapped. "My answer is no," she said quietly. "No to Thomas. No to your merger. No to pretending last night never happened. I'm done being the perfect Lang daughter." Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked out, ignoring her father calling her name. In the elevator, she leaned against the wall, heart pounding. She had never defied her father like that before. It was terrifying and exhilarating. As the elevator descended, she pulled out her phone and found Elijah's number. Before she could second-guess herself, she typed, "Need to talk. Can we meet?" To her surprise, he responded almost immediately, "Central Park, Bethesda Fountain, 1 p.m. The day was unseasonably warm for autumn, and the park was crowded with tourists and locals enjoying the sunshine. Genevieve spotted Elijah sitting on a bench near the fountain, watching children sail toy boats on the water. He wore jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt, a stark contrast to the tuxedo from the night before, but somehow he looked equally at ease in both. He stood as she approached, his expression guarded. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I was curious what the heiress to the Lang fortune would want with me after our arrangement was completed," he replied. They began walking along the path that circled the lake, an awkward silence between them. "Your poem is going viral," Genevieve finally said. "I know. My phone hasn't stopped ringing since this morning. A publisher wants to talk about a book deal." "That's great," she said, genuinely pleased for him. "You deserve it." He glanced at her. "Is that why you wanted to meet? To tell me about my sudden internet fame?" "No," she admitted. "I wanted to, I don't know, apologize, I guess." "For what?" "For using you," she said simply. "I brought you to that banquet to make a point, to embarrass my family and friends. It was selfish and cruel." Elijah was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something? Why me? You could have hired anyone, an actor, a model, someone who would have played the part you wanted." Genevieve thought about it. "I saw you in the hallway and you seemed real. Everyone in my life is so fake, so concerned with appearances. You were just doing your job, not trying to impress anyone. So you wanted authenticity as a prop in your little rebellion," he said, but there was no anger in his voice, just a sad understanding. "Yes," she acknowledged, "but then you weren't what I expected. You weren't intimidated by my world. You stood on that stage and spoke your truth, and it made everything else feel hollow." They stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the water. In the distance, the city skyline rose against the blue sky. "I've been thinking about you all night," Genevieve confessed. "About what you said, about being invisible. I've spent my whole life being seen for all the wrong reasons. My family name, my trust fund, who I'm dating. Never for who I actually am." "And who are you, Genevieve Lang?" Elijah asked softly. She laughed, a little bitterly. "I don't know. That's the sad part. I've spent so long being what everyone else wanted that I'm not sure what's left underneath." Elijah studied her face. "I think there's more to you than you realize. The woman who stood up to her father, How did you know about that?" "One of the security guards at Lang Tower is a friend of mine," he explained. "Word travels fast among the invisible people." "Well, it was probably stupid," she sighed. "My father doesn't forgive defiance easily." "What will you do now?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I've never really been on my own before. I've always had my father's money, my family name open. Indoors. Maybe it's time to find out who you are without those things," Elijah suggested. They continued walking, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. Elijah told her about growing up in Harlem, about discovering poetry in a high school English class, about working nights as a janitor, while pursuing his writing during the day. "What about you?" he asked. "What does Genevieve Lang do when she's not attending galas or making headlines?" She realized with a pang that she didn't have a good answer. "I sit on some charity boards, I shop, I exist." "That doesn't sound very fulfilling." "It's not," she admitted. "My mother wanted me to go to art school. I used to paint before she died. She was the only one who thought it was worth pursuing." "And what did your father think?" "That it was a hobby, not a career," she said. "After she was gone, it just seemed easier to follow his plan for me." As they rounded the lake, Elijah checked his watch. "I should go. I have a meeting with that publisher in an hour." "Of course," Genevieve said, surprised by her disappointment. "Thank you for meeting me today, and for listening." He nodded, then hesitated. "Would you like to come to a poetry reading tomorrow night at the Harlem Brew House?" "Lucky to see who Genevieve Lang is outside of her world," he said with a small smile. "8 o'clock if you're interested." As she watched him walk away, Genevieve felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of possibility. When she returned to her penthouse, Mia was waiting with a concerned expression. "Your father called 4 times and Thomas twice." "Let them call," Genevieve said, kicking off her shoes. "I'm not answering." "What happened at the meeting?" "They wanted me to get back together with Thomas for the sake of some merger deal." Mia's jaw dropped. "You're kidding? After he cheated on you? With Olivia?" "Anyway, I told them no, all of them. I walked out." "Wow," Mia breathed. "I've never seen you stand up to your father like that." She poured herself a glass of water, suddenly aware of Mia watching her curiously. "What?" "I met with Elijah." Mia's eyebrows shot up. "The janitor poet. Why?" "To apologize for using him," Genevieve said. "And I don't know. To talk to someone who sees the world differently than we do." "And how did that go?" "It was nice," Genevieve said simply. "He invited me to a poetry reading tomorrow night." "And you're going?" Mia asked incredulously. "I think I am," Genevieve replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Mia looked concerned. "Jen, I get that you're rebelling against your dad right now, but getting involved with someone like Elijah Rowe is..." "Someone like him?" "A completely different world," Mia said gently. "This isn't a movie, Jen. Rich girls and working-class guys don't usually get happily ever after in real life." "Who said anything about happily ever after?" Genevieve protested. "It's just a poetry reading." Before Mia could respond, Genevieve's phone rang again. This time, it was her father's lawyer. "Martin," she answered warily. "What can I do for you?" "Ms. Lang, I'm calling about your trust fund," the lawyer said without preamble. "Your father has instructed me to inform you that access to your accounts has been temporarily suspended." Genevieve felt the blood drain from her face. "He can't do that. That money is mine. The trust has conditions, as you know, Martin replied smoothly. Your father, as trustee, has the authority to restrict access if he determines you're acting against your own best interests. This is because I wouldn't get back together with Thomas, she said, anger building in her chest. I'm simply delivering the message, Ms. Lang. Your father suggests you take some time to reconsider your position. He'll be at the Hamptons' house this weekend if you'd like to discuss terms. Terms, she repeated bitterly. Like I'm a business deal. Is there anything else I can help you with? Martin asked, his tone making it clear he wasn't interested in her feelings on the matter. No, that will be Al L, she said coldly, and hung up. Mia looked at her with concern. What happened? My father cut me off, Genevieve said, a strange calm settling over her. No more trust fund, no more allowance, nothing. What are you going to do? Genevieve walked to the window, looking out at the city that had always been her playground. For the first time it seemed vast and unknown, full of possibilities beyond the narrow world she'd inhabited. I'm going to find UT who I am without the Lang name and money, she said, starting with a poetry reading in Harlem tomorrow night. The Harlem Brewhouse was nothing like the venues Genevieve usually frequented. The brick-walled space was packed with people of all ages, sitting at small tables or standing along the walls, nursing craft beers and coffees. A small stage was set up in the corner, illuminated by simple spotlights. Genevieve had spent an hour trying to figure out what to wear, finally settling on jeans, a simple black sweater and minimal jewelry. She wanted to blend in, to be seen as just another person in the crowd, not Genevieve Lang, Manhattan heiress. She found a spot at the back, nursing a glass of wine and watching as various poets took the stage. Some were polished and confident, others nervous but heartfelt. The audience responded warmly to each, snapping fingers in appreciation of particularly powerful lines. When Elijah was introduced, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Clearly, his viral moment had reached his community. He took the stage with the same quiet dignity she had witnessed at the banquet. But here among his people, there was an ease to his movements that she hadn't seen before. Thank you, he said into the microphone. It's been a strange few days. Some of you might have seen a video of me speaking at a fancy banquet. Whoops and cheers confirmed that many had. Tonight, I want to share something new, he continued. Something I wrote after a beat. Had he written about her? A flicker of surprise crossed his face, followed by a small smile of recognition. Then he began to speak, his deep voice wrapping around words about seeing and being seen, about the masks people wear and the truths they hide, about wealth that impoverishes the soul and poverty that enriches it. When he finished, the room erupted in snaps and applause. Elijah nodded his thanks and stepped off the stage, immediately surrounded by friends and admirers. Genevieve hesitated, suddenly feeling out of place. She was about to leave when Elijah spotted her and made his way through the crowd. You came, he said, genuine pleasure in his voice. I said I would, she replied. You were amazing up there. A young woman approached, looking between them with curiosity. Elijah, aren't you going to introduce us to your friend? Of course, he said. Maya, this is Genevieve. Genevieve, my sister Maya. Maya's eyebrows rose slightly. Genevieve Lang, from the video? That's me, Genevieve acknowledged, bracing for hostility. Instead, Maya laughed. Well, I've got to say you're not what I expected. Elijah told me you paid him to be your date. Maya, Elijah warned. It's fine, Genevieve said. It's true. Not my proudest moment. Hey, no judgment here, Maya said, raising her hands. My brother got paid and got famous. Win-win. More of Elijah's friends joined them, and to Genevieve's surprise, they welcomed her into their circle without reservation. They were artists, teachers, community organizers, people with passion and purpose that made her own life seem shallow by comparison. As the night wore on, the crowd thinned, and Elijah suggested they go for a walk. The autumn air was crisp as they strolled through Harlem's streets, past historic brownstones and vibrant murals. "Thank you for inviting me tonight," Genevieve said. "Your friends are great." "They're good people," he agreed. "They don't care about your last name or your bank account, just who you are." "That's refreshing," she said with a small laugh. "In my world, those are the only things that matter." They stopped at a small community garden tucked between buildings, a hidden oasis of green in the urban landscape. Elijah unlocked the gate with a key from his pocket. "You have a key?" she asked, following him inside. "I volunteer here," he explained. "Teaching kids about growing food and writing poetry about nature. Sometimes I come here at night just to think." The garden was magical in the moonlight, with winding paths, raised beds full of vegetables, and a small seating area surrounded by flowering vines. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, casting a gentle glow over the space. "It's beautiful," Genevieve breathed. "Different from Central Park," Elijah said with a smile. "Better," she replied honestly. "This feels created, cared for." They sat on a bench, the sounds of the city a distant hum beyond the garden walls. For a while, they just sat in comfortable silence. "My father cut me off," Genevieve said finally, "after I refused to get back with Thomas." Elijah turned to her, concern in his eyes. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. "It's actually the first time in my life I've felt free, scared, but free." "What will you do?" "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I have some savings of my own, enough to last a while if I'm careful. After that," she shrugged, "I guess I'll have to figure out who I am without the Lang fortune." "That sounds like an adventure worth taking," Elijah said softly. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. Slowly, hesitantly, Elijah reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "This is crazy," Genevieve whispered. "We barely know each other." "Sometimes the most important connections happen in an instant," he replied, "like a poem that changes everything in just a few lines." When he kissed her, it was gentle and questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. Instead, she leaned into it, feeling more alive in that moment than she had in years. Later, as they walked back through the quiet streets hand in hand, Genevieve felt as though she was waking up from a long sleep. The world seemed sharper, more vivid, full of possibilities she had never considered. "Can I see you tomorrow?" she asked as they reached the subway station. Elijah smiled. "I was hoping you'd ask." As she rode the train back to Manhattan, Genevieve's phone buzzed with a text from her father. "The Hamptons this weekend, we need to talk." She stared at the message for a long moment, then turned off her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. For the first time in her life, she was making her own choices, following her own heart, and it felt like the beginning of something real. The next week passed in a blur for Genevieve. By day, she ignored the increasingly angry calls from her father and avoided the society friends who suddenly had so many questions about her situation. By night, she explored Elijah's world. Poetry readings in basement cafes, community gardens hidden between buildings, rooftop gatherings where people talked about art and justice instead of stock portfolios and vacation homes. In Elijah's neighborhood, no one cared about her last name. She was just Elijah's friend Genevieve, and the anonymity was intoxicating. For the first time in her life, people were responding to her, not to her family's wealth and status. On Friday morning, Genevieve woke to an insistent knocking at her penthouse door. She found Mia outside, clutching a newspaper with a concerned expression. "Have you seen this?" Mia asked, thrusting the paper into Genevieve's hands. The headline read, "Lang Heiress, slumming it with viral janitor poet." "Charming," Genevieve said dryly, tossing the paper aside. "Come in, I'll make coffee." Mia followed her to the kitchen, watching as Genevieve calmly prepared 2 C-ups. "You don't seem upset." "Why would I be?" Genevieve asked. "I've been tabloid fodder since I was 16. At least this time it's about something real." "Jen, you need to take this seriously," Mia urged. Your father called me again this morning. He's threatening to evict you if you don't meet with him this weekend. Genevieve's hand stilled briefly over the coffee pot. Her father owned the building. The penthouse had been a gift for her 21st birthday, but the deed remained in his name. Let him, she said, with more confidence than she felt. I'm not going to let him control me anymore. Where would you go? Mia asked. You've never lived anywhere but here or the family estate. Genevieve hadn't thought that far ahead. The reality of her situation was beginning to sink in, without her trust fund, with her father's connections closed to her. What options did she have? I have friends, she said. Look, I'm not saying give in to him. Just meet with him. Hear what he has to say. Genevieve sighed. He wants me to get back with Thomas, to end things with Elijah, to be the obedient daughter he can parade around at business functions. Is that so terrible? Mia asked gently. You've had a nice rebellion, made your point. Maybe it's time to make peace. It's not a rebellion, Mia, Genevieve said, her voice rising. It's my life. For the first time, I'm making my own choices. Mia looked skeptical. And one of those choices is dating a janitor you've known for all of a week. He's a poet, Genevieve corrected automatically. And yes, I'm choosing to spend time with someone who sees me as a person, not an accessory or a business asset. Mia held up her hands in surrender. Okay. I just don't want to see you hurt. Your father plays hardball, you know that. I know, Genevieve said, softening. But I need to do this, Mia. I need to find out who I am without his money and the Lang name opening doors. After Mia left, Genevieve stood at her window, looking out at the city. The truth was, she had no idea what she would do if her father followed through on his threat. She had some jewelry she could sell, a separate bank account with enough savings to last a few months, but after that, she had never had a real job, never had to support herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elijah. Publisher meeting went well. Dinner tonight to celebrate? My place? She smiled, typing back, absolutely. Send me the address. Elijah's apartment was a far cry from her penthouse, a fourth-floor walk-up in a pre-war building with high ceilings, worn hardwood floors, and windows that looked out onto a brick wall. But what it lacked in luxury, it made up for in character. Bookshelves lined every available wall, plants thrived on the windowsills, and the furniture, though mismatched, was comfortable and inviting. It's not much, he said, watching her take it in, but the rent is reasonable, and it's mine. I love it, Genevieve said honestly. It feels like you. She wandered to a bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines. You've read all of these, most of them, he replied, moving to the small kitchen area where something that smelled delicious was simmering on the stove. I collect used books. There's something about the history in them, knowing someone else found meaning in the same words. Genevieve picked up a framed photo of a young Elijah with a woman who had his same warm eyes. My mother, he explained, noticing her interest. She raised us after my father left, worked 2 jobs to keep us in a decent school district. She's the one who first took me to a poetry reading. She must be very proud of you, Genevieve said. A shadow crossed his face. She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. But yes, I think she would be. I'm sorry, Genevieve said softly. I lost my mother too. Car accident when I was 16. That must have been hard. It was, she admitted. She was the buffer between me and my father. After she died, he became more controlling, more focused on the family legacy. Elijah stirred the pot on the stove. My sister says it's a special kind of lonely, losing your mother, like losing the one person who saw you completely. That's exactly it, Genevieve said, surprised by his understanding. In her social circle, death was something to be mentioned briefly, and then glossed over. Grief a private matter not to be discussed in polite company. Elijah dished up 2 bowls of fragrant. So, tell me about your day. Genevieve hesitated, then showed him the newspaper article on her phone. I'm sorry, he said after reading it. I didn't think we were being followed. I'm used to it, she shrugged. though usually the pictures are more flattering and less surveillance-like. Does it bother you, being seen with me like that? She looked at him directly. No. What bothers me is the assumption that I'm slumming it by spending time with you, as if you're somehow beneath me because of your job. Elijah's expression was thoughtful. But isn't that exactly why you chose me for the banquet? Because I was beneath your usual crowd? The directness of the question caught her off guard. Yes, she admitted, and I'm ashamed of that now. But I'm trying to be better, to see beyond the categories I was raised with. That's all any of us can do, he said simply. Recognize our blind spots and try to grow beyond them. As they ate, Elijah told her about his meeting with the publisher. They wanted to rush out a collection of his poems, capitalizing on his viral fame. They also wanted him to write a memoir about his experience infiltrating high society. What did you tell them? Genevieve asked. That I'd consider the poetry collection, but the memoir felt exploitative, he replied. I didn't go to that banquet to expose anyone or make a spectacle. I went because a beautiful woman offered me money and I had something to say. Genevieve felt her cheeks warm at the casual compliment. I'm glad about the poetry collection. Your voice deserves to be heard. After dinner, they moved to his small balcony, where two mismatched chairs faced the city skyline. The evening was cool, and Elijah draped a soft blanket over their shoulders as they sat side by side. My father is threatening to evict me from my penthouse, Genevieve said, breaking the comfortable silence. Elijah turned to look at her. What will you do? I don't know, she admitted. I've never had to figure things out on my own before. What do you want, Genevieve? He asked. Not what your father wants, not what society expects. What do you want? She thought about it, truly thought about it, perhaps for the first time. I want to paint again. I want to feel the way I feel when I'm with you, seen for who I am, not what I represent. Their hands found each other in the space between the chairs, fingers interlacing naturally. Then that's where you start, Elijah said. The rest will follow. Later, as they stood at his door saying goodnight, Genevieve gathered her courage. So if my father does evict me, could I stay here, just until I figure things out? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. They'd known each other barely a week, and yet there was a connection between them that defied the usual timelines. The kiss they shared was deeper than the first, filled with a growing trust and understanding. When they finally pulled apart, Genevieve rested her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. The next morning, Genevieve woke to a text from Maya, Elijah's sister. Coffee? There's something you should know. Odette's Cafe, 10 a.m. Curious and a little anxious, Genevieve arrived at the small cafe in Harlem precisely at 10. Maya was already there, a laptop open in front of her. Aide, gesturing to the chair across from her. Is everything okay? Genevieve asked. Is Elijah? He's fine, Maya assured her, but someone's been asking questions about him. About both of you, actually. Genevieve's stomach tightened. What kind of questions? Maya turned her laptop around. On the screen was an email from a journalist at the New York Sentinel requesting an interview with Maya about her brother's relationship with Genevieve Lang and High's sudden rise to fame. They're offering money, Maya said. A lot of money. Are you going to do it? Genevieve asked, her voice carefully neutral. Maya studied her face. That depends on you. Are you playing some kind of game with my brother? Because if you are, I need to know now. I'm not, Genevieve said firmly. What happened between us didn't start honestly, I'll admit that. But it's real now. At least it is for me. Maya's expression softened slightly. Elijah's been through a lot. After our mum died, he put his own dreams on hold to help me finish college. He's the most giving person I know, but he doesn't always protect his own heart. I would never intentionally hurt him, Genevieve promised. Maybe not intentionally, Maya acknowledged, but your worlds are very different. Your father is Richard Lang, one of the most powerful men in the city. If he decides my brother is a problem, I will. Don't let my father hurt Elijah, Genevieve said, with more conviction than she felt. Maya closed her laptop. I'm not doing the interview, but you should know. They'll find someone who will talk. That's how these things work. I know, Genevieve sighed. I've been dealing with the press my whole life. Usually they lose interest after a few days. Unless someone keeps feeding them the story, Maya pointed out. As if on cue, Genevieve's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of her and Maya sitting in the cafe, clearly taken just moments ago, with the message, Richard Lang wants to meet, the Pierre Hotel, noon today. She showed the text to Maya, whose eyes widened. They're following you. Apparently, Genevieve said grimly. My father's way of letting me know he can find me whenever he wants. What are you going to do? Genevieve squared her shoulders. I'm going to meet him. End this on my terms. The Pierre Hotel's elegant tea room was nearly empty when Genevieve arrived. Her father sat alone at a corner table, looking impeccable as always in a tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly combed. As she approached, she noticed the lines around his eyes, the slight slump of his shoulders. For the first time, she saw him as simply a man, not the towering figure who had dominated her life. Genevieve, he said, standing briefly as she took the seat across from him. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? She asked. You had me followed. A precaution, he replied smoothly. You haven't been answering my calls. A waiter appeared, and Richard ordered tea for both of them without consulting her preferences. Some habits never changed. Why am I here, Dad? Genevieve asked when the waiter left. To hear more about how I'm ruining the family name. How I need to reconcile with Thomas for the sake of your business deal. Richard's jaw tightened. I'm trying to protect you, Genevieve. This dalliance with the janitor. His name is Elijah, she interrupted. And he's a poet. Fine. Elijah, Richard conceded. Whatever you think you feel for this man, it can't go anywhere. You're from different worlds. Maybe I'm tired of my world, Genevieve said quietly. Maybe I want something real for a change. Richard leaned forward. I've had HM investigated. Did you know he was arrested at a protest 3 years ago? Or that his father left when he was 8 because he had another family across town? Is that the kind of man you want to be associated with? Genevieve felt a flare of anger. The kind who stands up for what he believes in? The kind who helped put his sister through college after their mother died? Yes, that's exactly the kind of man I want to know. The waiter returned with their tea, and they fell silent until he departed. I see you've made up your mind, Richard said finally. So let me be clear about what happens next. If you continue this relationship, you will be completely cut off. No more trust fund, no more penthouse, no more Lang name opening doors. I already figured that out when you froze my accounts, Genevieve replied. It goes beyond money, Richard continued. You'll be removed from the foundation board. Your society friends will disappear when they realize you're no longer useful. And as for your poet, he too okay a sip of tea. Do you really think his sudden fame is good for his art? For his message about inequality and invisible labor? How authentic will he seem living off a Lang heiress? The question hit Genevieve like a slap. She hadn't considered how her presence in Elijah's life might undermine the very things that made him special. He's not living off me, she said, but the certainty in her voice had wavered. Richard noticed the hesitation and pressed his advantage. People like us can't just walk away from who we are, Genevieve. The Lang name comes with privileges and responsibilities. It's in your blood. I'm more than my last name, she insisted. Are you? What skills do you have? What can you offer the world besides your family connections and money? Richard's tone was almost gentle now, which somehow made his words cut deeper. This rebellion is a luxury only the wealthy can afford. Genevieve's mind raced. What could she offer? She had a degree in art history that she'd barely earned, attending classes when it suited her. She had never held a job, never had to support herself. I can learn, she said finally. I can become more than what you've made me. Richard sighed, looking suddenly tired. Genevieve, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to save you from making a mistake that will cost you everything you've ever known. Maybe I need to lossy everything I've known to find what I really want, she countered. Her father studied her face for a long moment. You remind me of your mother right now. She had that same stubborn streak. His expression softened slightly. She would have been proud of your courage, even if she disagreed with your choices. The mention of her mother caught Genevieve off guard. Richard rarely spoke of his late wife. I miss her, Genevieve said quietly. As do I. Richard, he admitted. Every day. A silence fell between them, less hostile than before. I have a proposal, Richard said finally. Give yourself time to think. Come to the Hamptons' house for the weekend. Alone. No decisions, no ultimatums. Just consideration of all you're risking. Genevieve hesitated. It seemed like a reasonable request, and yet she sensed a trap. And if I say no? Then you'll find your key card to the penthouse deactivated by Monday morning, he replied, the momentary softness gone. Your choice. As she left the hotel, Genevieve's mind was in turmoil. Her father's words had struck home in ways she hadn't anticipated. What if he was right? What if her relationship with Elijah was doomed by their differences? What if her presence in his life undermined everything he stood for? She walked for hours, trying to sort through her conflicted feelings. When she finally checked her phone, she found several missed calls from Elijah and a text. Is everything okay? Maya told me about your meeting. Instead of responding, she called Mia. I need a favor, she said when her friend answered. Can you pack a bag for me? Enough for the weekend, I'll pick it up in an hour. You're going to the Hamptons? Mia asked. Yes, Genevieve said. I need time to think. What about Elijah? Mia asked carefully. That's what I need to think about, Genevieve replied. The Lang family estate in the Hamptons was quiet in the off-season. The gardens were bare, the pool covered, the grand rooms echoing with emptiness. Genevieve wandered through the house where she had spent so many summers, trying to reconnect with the person she had been before Elijah, before her broken engagement, before her rebellion against everything she had been raised to be. Her father had not joined her, giving her the space he had promised, but Heiress' presence lingered in every room, in the expectations built into the very walls of this family legacy. On Saturday afternoon, as rain lashed against the windows, Genevieve found herself in her mother's old studio. It had been preserved exactly as Catherine Lang had left it. Easels positioned by the north-facing windows, brushes cleaned and standing in jars, canvases stacked against the walls. Unlike the rest of the house, which reflected Richard's preference for austere luxury, this room was colorful, creative, alive with the memory of the woman who had once filled it. Genevieve ran her fingers over her mother's palette, the dried paint a testament to the last time she had mixed colors here. On an impulse, she pulled out a blank canvas and set it on the easel. There were tubes of paint in the drawers, some dried out but others still usable. She squeezed dollops of color onto the palette, picked up a brush, and began to paint. She had no plan, no vision, just an overwhelming need to express the turmoil inside her. Colors flowed from her brush, dark blues and purples giving way to fiery reds and golds. She painted for hours, losing herself in the process, remembering the joy her mother had taught her to find in creation. When she finally stepped back, the canvas held an abstract landscape of emotion, chaos giving way to clarity, darkness yielding to light. In the center, almost hidden within the swirls of color, was the suggestion of two figures facing each other across a divide, hands outstretched but not quite touching. That's beautiful. Genevieve whirled around to find Elijah standing in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes fixed on her painting. Elijah, she gasped. How did you... Maya tracked your phone, he admitted. I was worried when you disappeared. The caretaker let me in. You shouldn't be here, she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. Probably not, he agreed, stepping into the room. But I needed to see you to understand why you left without a word. Genevieve turned back to her painting, unable to meet his eyes. My father made me see some hard truths about us, about how different our worlds are. And you believed him? Elijah asked quietly. He said, she hesitated. He said my presence in your life would undermine your message, that people wouldn't take you seriously as a voice for the invisible workers if you were involved with someone like me. Elijah was silent for a moment. Do you know why I agreed to be your date that night? The real reason? She shook her head. I'd seen you before, he admitted. Coming in and out of the building. You never noticed me, why would you? But I noticed you. Not just your beauty, but the sadness in your eyes, the way you seemed so alone, even in a crowd. He moved closer, his eyes never leaving her face. When you offered me money to be your date, I said yes because I wanted to see behind the mask. I wanted to understand what made someone like you so unhappy in a world of privilege. And what did you find? Genevieve asked softly. A woman trapped by expectations, a woman trying to break free. He gestured to the painting. A woman with so much inside her waiting to be expressed. Tears filled Genevieve's eyes. I don't know who I am without my family name, without the money and status. What if there's nothing left when all that's stripped away? Elijah took her paint-stained hands in his. There's everything left, Genevieve, everything that matters. How can you be so sure? Because I see you, he said simply. Not the Lang heiress, not the society princess. You, and you're extraordinary. She looked down at their joined hand S, his strong and calloused from work, hers soft and now streaked with paint. Different, yes, but somehow fitting together perfectly. I'm scared, she admitted, of losing everything I've known, of not being enough for you. I'm scared too, Elijah confessed, that you'll wake up one day and regret choosing someone like me, that you'll miss your old life too much to be happy in mine. So what do? We take it one day at a time, he said. We don't let fear, or your father or society tell us what's possible between us. Outside, the rain had stopped, and a beam of late afternoon sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the studio in a golden glow. Genevieve looked around at her mother's space, at the creative legacy Catherine Lang had left behind, not of wealth or status, but of authentic expression and joy. My mother would have liked you, she said suddenly. She always said the most important thing in life was to be true to yourself, no matter what others expected. She sounds like a wise woman, Elijah smiled. She was, Genevieve agreed, and I've spent too long forgetting her most important lessons. She stepped into his arms, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Take me home, she whispered. The penthouse? He asked. She looked up at him, certainty filling her for the first time in days. No, you our place, if the offer still stands. Always, he promised, and sealed it with a kiss that felt like a beginning. As they walked out of the studio hand in hand, Genevieve glanced back at her painting. It wasn't perfect, nothing real ever was, but it was honest. And for now, that was enough. Monday morning arrived with a sense of finality. As Genevieve had expected, her keycard to the penthouse no longer worked. The doorman, who had known her since she was a teenager, looked uncomfortable as he explained that her father had left strict instructions. It's okay, George, she assured him. I knew this was coming. Your things, Miss Lang, he said, gesturing to several designer suitcases stacked by the door. Mr. Lang had them packed for you, and he left this. He handed her an envelope with her name written in her father's precise handwriting. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a brief note. For emergencies, the door remains open when you're ready to come home, Dad. Genevieve stared at the check. It was both a lifeline and a tether, her father's way of ensuring she knew he still had power over her, that he believed her independence would be short-lived. She folded the check and put it back in the envelope. She wouldn't cash it, not yet, not unless there was truly no other option. Elijah was waiting in a borrowed car, helping the doorman load her suitcases into the trunk. Genevieve looked up at the gleaming tower that had been her home, feeling a strange mixture of loss and liberation. Ready? Elijah asked as she slid into the passenger seat. Ready, she confirmed. As they drove away from her old life, Genevieve's phone buzzed with a text. It was from Maya. "Check your email now." With a sense of foreboding, Genevieve opened her email to find a message from Maya with a link to the New York Sentinel's website. The headline made her blood run cold. Exclusive: "The truth about Elijah Rowe and Genevieve Lang, a relationship built on a 10,000 bet." The article detailed their arrangement, complete with quotes from sources close to Ms. Lang, about how she had hired Elijah as a prop to embarrass her family. There was even a blurry photo of them in the Lang Tower hallway on the day she had first approached him. "Thomas," Genevieve whispered, recognizing her ex-fiancé's revenge. "He must have had someone following me that day." Elijah pulled over to the side of the road, his face grim as he read the article over her shoulder. "Well," he said finally, "I guess the truth had to come out eventually." "Elijah, I'm so sorry," Genevieve said, reaching for his hand. "This is all my fault." To her surprise, he laughed, a short, sharp sound without much humor. "The funny thing is, they think this exposes us, but we already know how we started. It's where we're going that matters." Genevieve studied his face, searching for any sign of doubt or regret. "Are you sure? This will follow us now." "Let it," he said firmly. "Let them write their stories. We'll write our own." As they pulled back onto the road, Genevieve's phone began to ring incessantly. Society friends suddenly curious, reporters seeking comment. Her father no doubt furious at the public scandal. She turned it off and dropped it into her purse. "What now?" she asked, looking at the city spread out before them, full of possibilities and pitfalls. "Now," Elijah said, taking her hand, "we figure it out together, one day at a time." And for the first time in her life, that was enough for Genevieve Lang, not the certainty of wealth and status, but the promise of discovery, of becoming herself at last, with someone who saw her clearly by her side. The tabloid story spread like wildfire. By evening, it was trending on social media, with people taking sides in what the press had dubbed the Lang-Rowe scandal. Some painted Genevieve as a spoiled heiress who had used a working man as a pawn in her family drama. Others cast Elijah as an opportunist who had leveraged the situation into fame and a book deal. The truth, as always, was more complicated. Genevieve and Elijah retreated to his small apartment, ignoring the reporters who had somehow discovered his address and were camped outside the building. Maya brought groceries, slipping in through the back entrance to avoid the cameras. "This is insane," she said, unpacking bags on Elijah's kitchen counter. "There are at least 6 news vans out there." "It'll die down," Elijah assured her, though he looked less confident than his words suggested. Genevieve sat at the small table, scrolling through messages on her tablet. "My father's assistant called. Apparently he's deeply disappointed by my continued poor judgment." "That's rich," Maya scoffed, "considering he's the one who threw you out." "He thinks I leaked the story," Genevieve explained, "to embarrass him and the family name." Elijah looked up from the pot he was stirring. "Did you tell him it was Thomas?" "He wouldn't believe me," Genevieve sighed. "In his mind, I'm the rebellious daughter determined to ruin the lie, Nung reputation." The truth was, she didn't know for certain that Thomas was behind the leak. It could have been anyone who had overheard their conversation that day in the hallway, a security guard, another executive, even one of the cleaning staff. But Thomas had the most to gain from the public humiliation. "I got another call from the publisher," Elijah said, changing the subject. "They want to fast-track the poetry collection now, capitalize on all the publicity." "That's good, right?" Maya asked. Elijah's expression was troubled. "I don't know. I wanted my work to stand on its own merits, not because I'm part of some society scandal." "Your work does stand on its own," Genevieve insisted. "Anyone who reads your poems knows that." "Maybe," he conceded, "but now everything I do will be seen through the lens of my relationship with you, the janitor who hooked the heiress." The words stung, though Genevieve knew he wasn't blaming her. This was exactly what her father had warned about, how her presence in Elijah's life might undermine the authenticity of his voice, his message. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "This is all my fault. If I hadn't approached you that day, then we never would have met," Elijah finished, coming to sit beside her. "And I wouldn't trade that for anything, not even my privacy." "Are you sure?" she asked, searching his face. Your life was simpler before me. Simpler, yes. Better? No. He took her hand. We'll get through this, Genevieve. The world will move on to the next scandal, and we'll still be here, figuring things out together. Maya watched them with a mixture of concern and affection. Well, while you two are figuring things out, I have news. I got a call from someone named Sophia Chen at the New York Arts Collective. She wants to talk to both of you. Elijah frowned. The curator? Why would she want to talk to us? Something about an exhibition, Maya shrugged. She didn't give details, just left her number. Genevieve and Elijah exchanged puzzled looks. The New York Arts Collective was one of the most prestigious arts organizations in the city, known for showcasing cutting-edge work by both established and emerging artists. It's probably nothing, Genevieve said, but there was a spark of curiosity in her eyes. Later that tea, after Maya had left and they were preparing for bed, Elijah found Genevieve standing by the window, peering through a gap in the curtains at the reporters still waiting outside. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him. "I was thinking about what you said earlier, about how everything you do now will be seen through the lens of our relationship." "I shouldn't have said that," he began, but she turned to face him. "No, you were right, and it works both ways. I'm not just Genevieve Lang anymore. I'm the heiress who fell for the janitor poet." She smiled ruefully. "It sounds like the title of a bad romance novel. Or a good one," he countered, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Depends on the ending." "That's just it," she said. "I don't want our story to be reduced to some cliché about crossing class lines or rebelling against my father. What we have is more than that." "Much more," he agreed. "But we can't control how others see us, Genevieve. We can only be true to ourselves and each other." She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I think I want to call Sophia Chen tomorrow, see what she has to say." "Okay," Elijah said. "We'll call her together." The New York Arts Collective occupied a converted warehouse in Chelsea, its vast industrial space transformed into gallery rooms with soaring ceilings and polished concrete floors. Sophia Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a sleek bob and minimalist black clothing, met them at the entrance. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading them through the main gallery where workers were installing what looked like a new exhibition. "I appreciate you braving the paparazzi." They had indeed been followed from Elijah's apartment, with photographers snapping pictures as they entered the building. Genevieve had grown used to such attention over the years, but Elijah was still adjusting to the loss of anonymity. "Your call was intriguing," Genevieve said, "though I'm not sure why you wanted to see both of us." Sophia led them to a small conference room and closed the door, muffling the sounds of the installation work outside. "I'll get straight to the point. We're planning an exhibition called Crossing Lines about our relationships that challenge social boundaries. When I saw the story about you two, I was immediately interested." Elijah stiffened beside Genevieve. "We're not interested in being part of some voyeuristic display." "That's not what I'm proposing," Sophia clarified quickly. "This isn't about exploiting your personal lives. It's about the art that emerges from challenging social norms." She turned to Genevieve. "I saw your mother's work many times. Catherine Lang was an extraordinary painter, ahead of her time in many ways. I understand you inherited her talent." Genevieve was startled. "How did you know I paint?" "Maya mentioned it when I called," Sophia admitted. "She was quite protective of you both, but when I explained what I had in mind, she thought you might be interested." "And what exactly do you have in mind?" Elijah asked, still wary. Sophia leaned forward, her enthusiasm evident. "A collaborative exhibition, Elijah's poetry alongside Genevieve's paintings. Work that speaks to your experiences, your perspectives on wealth, class, visibility, voice. All the themes that have made your story resonate with so many people." Genevieve and Elijah exchanged surprised looks. "I haven't painted seriously in years," Genevieve protested. "And I've never exhibited my work in a gallery setting," Elijah added. "That's what makes this exciting," Sophia insisted. "Fresh voices, authentic perspectives. The exhibition would open in 3 months, enough time for you to create a body of work that responds to recent events in your lives." The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Genevieve thought of the painting she had created in her mother's studio at the Hamptons house, raw, emotional, honest, in a way her earlier work had never been. "May I think about it?" she asked. "Of course," Sophia replied. "Both of you should consider it carefully. This would put your relationship even more in the public eye, but it would also allow you to reclaim the narrative, to tell your own story through your art." As they left the gallery, dodging photographers again, Elijah was quiet, lost in thought. "What do you think?" Genevieve asked as they rode the subway back to Harlem, another new experience for her. "I think it's an opportunity," he said finally, "but I'm not sure if it's the right one for us." "Because of the publicity?" "Partly," he admitted, "but also because this is your world, Genevieve. Art galleries, exhibitions, cultural institutions. I don't want to be seen as riding your coattails into spaces that wouldn't normally welcome someone like me." "That's not fair," she argued. "Your poetry deserves to be heard in any space, and this isn't my world anymore. I gave that up, remember?" "Did you?" he asked gently. "Or are you just visiting a different reality for a while?" The question hung between them, uncomfortable but necessary. Genevieve had walked away from her father's money and influence, but the Lang name still opened doors, like the one to Sophia Chen's gallery. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm still figuring out who I am without all of that, but I do know that I want to paint again, and the idea of doing it alongside your poetry feels right." Elijah took her H and his expression softening. "Then let's think about it. No rush to decide." 2 weeks later, the media frenzy had begun to die down. Newer scandals had captured the public's attention, and the reporters outside Elijah's building had dwindled to just 1 or 2 persistent tabloid photographers. Genevieve had converted a corner of Elijah's living room into a makeshift studio, setting up an easel near the window where the light was best. She had started painting again, small canvases at first, tentative explorations of color and form, but growing more confident with each one. Elijah had moved his writing desk next to her easel, and they often worked side by side in companionable silence, each absorbed in their art, but drawing strength from the other's presence. On a crisp autumn morning, as golden light filtered through the windows, Genevieve's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Ms. Lang, this is Martin Levy from Levy Gallery in Soho." Genevieve's pulse quickened. Levy Gallery was one of the most prestigious contemporary art spaces in the city. "Yes, Mr. Levy. How can I help you?" "I recently had the pleasure of seeing one of your paintings," he said. "A rather striking abstract piece that Sophia Chen showed me. She mentioned you might be interested in representation." Genevieve almost dropped the phone. Yes, I would be interested in discussing that." "Excellent. Could you bring a portfolio of your work to the gallery next week? Say Wednesday at 2 p.m. After setting up the appointment and hanging up, Genevieve stood frozen, the phone still in her hand. Elijah looked up from his writing. "Everything okay?" "That was Martin Levy," she said, still stunned. "He wants to see my work, for possible representation by his gallery." Elijah's face lit up. "Genevieve, that's amazing. Levy Gallery is a big deal." "I know," she whispered, "but I don't have a portfolio. I've only done a few paintings since we moved in together." "Then we'll get you more canvases," he said, already reaching for his laptop. "And you'll paint every day until Wednesday. I've seen what you can do, Genevieve. Your work deserves to be seen." The confidence in his voice gave her courage. "Will you help me choose which pieces to show him?" "Of course, Elijah promised. "Though I'm biased, I think they're all incredible." For the next week, Genevieve painted with a focus and passion she hadn't felt since before her mother died. The canvases grew larger, her strokes more confident, her colors more vibrant. She was no longer trying to please her father or fit into the Lang family legacy. She was painting for herself, expressing her own truth. Elijah watched her transformation with awe, sometimes reading his latest poems aloud as she worked, their creative energies feeding each other. On Wednesday morning, as they carefully wrapped her paintings for transport to the gallery, Genevieve's phone rang again. This time, it was her father. She almost didn't answer, but something compelled her to take the call. "Hello, Dad?" "Genevieve?" Richard Lang's voice was formal, controlled. "I understand Martin Levy is considering representing your work." She shouldn't have been surprised that he knew. Her father's network of connections ran throughout the city's elite circles. "Yes, I have a meeting with him today. The Lang Foundation has supported Levy Gallery for years," he said. "I want to be clear that I had nothing to do with this opportunity. Martin assures me this is based solely on the merit of your work." Genevieve felt a complex mix of emotions, gratitude that he hadn't interfered, but also a lingering hurt that he seemed determined to distance himself from her success. "Thank you for telling me," she said stiffly. There was a pause, then Richard asked, "How are you, Genevieve, really?" The unexpected question caught her off guard. "I'm good, Dad. I'm painting again. I'm happy." Another pause. "And the poet, Elijah?" "We're building a life together," she said simply. "It's not always easy, but it's real." "I see." Her father's tone was unreadable. "Well, I was at you luck with Martin today. He has an excellent eye." "Dad," Genevieve said before he could hang up. "Why did you call? Really?" Richard sighed, a rare sound of vulnerability from him. "Your mother's birthday is next week. I was thinking of having a small dinner at the house. You're welcome to come. Bring Elijah if you want." The invitation stunned her. Thank you. I'll think about it." After they hung up, Genevieve told Elijah about the conversazione. "What do you think? Should we go?" "Do you want to?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to reconnect with my father, especially around my mother's memory. But I'm afraid it's a trap, a way to pull me back into his world." Elijah considered this. "Maybe it's a first step. Not back to your old life, but toward a new relationship with your father, one where you're both on equal footing." "Equal footing with Richard Lang?" Genevieve smiled ruefully. "That's hard to imagine." "You're stronger than you were," Elijah reminded her. "You know who you are now, what you want. He can't control you unless you let him." She nodded, drawing strength from his confidence in her. "We'll think about it. But first I have a gallery meeting to get through." Martin Levy was a small man with intense eyes and a reputation for discovering major talent. He studied Genevieve's paintings in silence, moving from one to the next with deliberate care. "These are not what I expected," he said finally. Genevieve's heart sank. "I know they're not traditional." No, he interrupted. "I meant that as a compliment. I expected technically proficient work with a dilettante's perspective. These have real emotion, real struggle in them. They remind me of your mother's later works, but with your own distinct voice." Relief washed over her. "Thank you. This one in party. Cola," Martin said, pointing to the largest canvas, an abstract piece that suggested two figures reaching toward each other across a divide of swirling color. The tension between separation and connection is palpable. It was the painting she had started at the Hamptons' house, the day Elijah had found her there. She had continued working on it in his apartment, refining and deepening the image. "Sophia Chen mentioned a possible joint exhibition with your partner, the poet Elijah Rowe," Martin continued. "I'd be interested in that, but I'm also willing to represent you independently. Your work deserves its own spotlight." "I'd like to discuss the joint exhibition idea with Elijah before deciding," Genevieve said, "but I'm honored by your interest in my work." As she left the gallery, stepping into the crisp autumn air, Genevieve felt a sense of possibility she had never experienced before. This opportunity had come not because of her family name or her father's connections, but because of her own talent and vision. She couldn't wait to tell Elijah. When she returned to the apartment, however, she found him sitting at the kitchen table with a serious expression, a letter in his hands. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down her portfolio. "The publisher wants me to go on a national tour for the poetry collection," he said. 20 cities in 6 weeks, start in G next month." "Elijah, that's wonderful," she exclaimed, but his expression didn't change. "They want me to go alone," he continued. "They think the janitor poet narrative works better if I'm not visibly connected to Lang money and influence." Their words, not mine. Genevieve felt as if she'd been slapped. "So I'm a liability now?" "That's not how I see it," Elijah assured her quickly. "But the publisher has a specific image they want to promote. The authentic voice from the working class, speaking truth to power. And I undermine that image," she said flatly. "According to their marketing department, yes." He looked troubled. "I told them I needed to think about it." Genevieve sank into the chair across from him. "What do you want to do?" "I want my work to reach people," he said honestly, "but not at the cost of denying what we have together." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. What had begun as Genevieve using Elijah as a prop had transformed into others wanting to use him in exactly the same way, as a symbol, a statement, a carefully packaged narrative that denied the complexity of his real life. "We always knew our relationship would complicate things," Genevieve said softly. "For both of us." "Complicate, yes," Elijah agreed, "but also enrich. I'm a better poet because of you, because of how you've opened my eyes to different perspectives. And I'm a better artist because of you," she replied. "Martin Levy wants to represent my work. He says it has real emotion, real struggle in it." Elijah's face lit up. "Genevieve, that's incredible. I knew he would see what I see in your paintings." She reached across the table and took his hand. "So where does this leave us? You with a book tour that wants you to hide our relationship, me with a gallery opportunity that came partly because of our story." "At a crossroads," he said simply. They sat in silence for a moment, each contemplating the choices before them. "What if," Genevieve said slowly, "we stop letting others define our story? What if we create our own path forward? What do you have in mind?" "I say no to Martin Levy's solo representation offer. You say no to the publisher's conditions for the tour, and we both say yes to Sophia Chen's joint exhibition proposal." Her eyes were bright with conviction. "We present our work together, on our own terms. Your poetry, my paintings, in conversation with each other, telling our truth." Elijah considered this. It would mean turning down bigger opportunities. "Maybe," she acknowledged, "or maybe it means creating something more meaningful than either of us could do alone." A slow smile spread across his face. "When did you get so wise, Genevieve Lang?" "When I stopped being afraid of losing everything," she replied, "and started discovering what I really wanted." He stood and pulled her into his arms. "Then let's do it. Together." 3 months later, the New York Arts Collective was packed for the opening night of Crossing Lines, the poetry of Elijah Rowe and the paintings of Genevieve Lang. The exhibition had generated significant buzz in the art world, with critics intrigued by the collaborative nature of the work and the story behind it. Genevieve S.'d in the main gallery, watching as guests moved between her large canvases and the walls where Elijah's poems were displayed alongside them. Each painting had been created in response to one of his poems, and each poem had been revised in dialogue with her visual interpretation, a creative conversation made visible. Elijah appeared at her side, handsome in a simple black suit, his expression a mixture of pride and disbelief. "Can you believe this is happening?" he asked, handing her a glass of champagne. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream," she admitted. "But then I look at our work on these walls and I know it's real." The crowd included an eclectic mix. Elijah's friends from Harlem, alongside art world elites, literary figures mingling with community activists. Maya circulated through the room, beaming with pride for both of them. Genevieve spotted Martin Levy deep in conversation with Sophia Chen, both of them gesturing enthusiastically toward one of her larger paintings. Though he had been disappointed when she declined solo representation, he had ultimately respected her decision and even helped promote the exhibition. "Your father's here," Elijah said quietly, nodding toward the entrance. Genevieve turned to see Richard Lang standing uncertainly at the gallery door, looking uncharacteristically out of place. Since their small, tense dinner, celebrating her mother's birthday 2 months ago, they had maintained a cautious, limited contact. This was the first time he had made a public appearance in support of her new life. "I should go say hello," she said, squeezing Elijah's hand. "I'll be right here," he promised. Richard Lang looked older somehow, the authoritative air that had defined him throughout Genevieve's life, tempered by something like humility. He nodded formally as she approached. "You Cami," she said simply. I wouldn't miss my daughter's first major exhibition, he replied. His eyes moved to the artwork on the walls. Your mother would have been proud, Genevieve. These are remarkable. Coming from her father, this was high praise indeed. Thank you for being here, Dad. It means a lot to me. Richard glanced across the room to where Elijah stood talking with Maya. He's good for you, isn't he? I can see it in your work. Yes, Genevieve said, surprised by his acknowledgement. We're good for each other. Her father nodded, as if confirming something to himself. I was wrong to try to control your life, Genevieve. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really just afraid of losing you like I lost your mother. The unexpected vulnerability in his voice brought tears to her eyes. You haven't lost me, Dad. I'm just finding my own way. I see that now, he said. And I'm proud of you for having the courage I never did. Before she could respond to this extraordinary admission, Sophia Chen approached, informing them that it was time for the artists to say a few words to the assembled guests. Genevieve rejoined Elijah at the center of the gallery, where a small microphone had been set up. As the crowd gathered around them, she felt a momentary flutter of nerves, then looked at Elijah and found her center again. Thank you all for coming tonight, she began. A year ago, I approached Elijah Rowe in a hallway and offered him money to be my date to a banquet. I wanted to make a statement, to embarrass my family and friends, to be the rebellious heiress one more time. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some of whom knew this story from the tabloids, others hearing it for the first time. What I didn't expect, she continued, was that Elijah would have his own statement to make, one about dignity, about seeing those our society renders invisible, about the true cost of wealth and privilege. She turned to look at him, her eyes full of love and respect. And I certainly didn't expect that his words would change me forever, that they would help me find my own voice, my own truth. Elijah stepped forward to join her at the microphone. What began as a transaction became a transformation, he said, for both of us. The art you see tonight is the result of that journey. Not always easy, not always clear, but always honest. He gestured to the paintings and poems surrounding them. These works speak to the divisions in our society. Yes, B. Yet also to the possibilities of connection across those divides, to what can happen when we truly see each other, not as categories or stereotypes, but as human beings with our own complex truths. Genevieve took his hand, drawing strength from his steady presence beside her. We've called this exhibition Crossing Lines, because that's what we've done. Crossed the lines of class, of expectation, of the stories society writes for people like us. And in doing so, Elijah added, we've discovered that those lines are more permeable than we thought, that the boundaries between us are often of our own making. As applause filled the gallery, Genevieve looked out at the faces watching them, Maya's pride, Sophia's satisfaction, her father's tentative acceptance, and the genuine interest of those who had come to experience their art. In that moment, she felt truly seen, not as the Lang heiress or as one half of a scandal, but as herself, an artist with something to say, a woman who had found her own path. Later, as the crowd thinned and the evening wound down, Elijah led her to a quiet corner of the gallery where one of her paintings hung alongside his poem about dignity and worth. It was the piece that had started it all, the one she had begun in her mother's studio and finished in his apartment. I have something to ask you, he said, his voice soft but certain. Frare. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. It's not fancy, he warned, but it was my grandmother's. Genevieve's heart seemed to stop as he opened the box to reveal a simple silver ring with a small, perfect pearl. Genevieve Lang, Elijah said, his eyes never leaving hers. Will you marry me? Not for any statement or symbol, but because I love you and want to build a life with you. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at this man who had changed Evie. Writhing, who had seen her when she was invisible even to herself. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Elijah Rowe. I will marry you because I love you. Because you make me more myself, not less. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Genevieve thought of how far they had come from that first meeting in the hallway, from a joke, a transaction, a game, to this moment of profound truth and commitment. The price of that joke had been high. She had lost her family 40. Yoon, her comfortable place in society, the certainty of a path laid out before her. But what she had gained was beyond measure, her voice, her art, her authentic self, and a love based not on convenience or expectation, but on genuine seeing and being seen. Some prices, she realized, were worth paying after all, and as Elijah kissed her beneath the painting that told their story, Genevieve knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning.